Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that honestly sounds straightforward but isn't. Getting a real handle on how much sodium we eat every day. We looked into research that uses the DASH diet as sort of a gold standard for healthy sodium levels. And what we found is, well, it's incredibly tough. The modern food environment just seems stacked against hitting those goals. Our mission today, figure out why there's such a huge gap between what health guidelines recommend and what we often end up consuming.
Exactly. And to start, we really need to understand what those guidelines are. The DAH diet, that's dietary approaches to stop hypertension, it's pretty clear. For general health, the target is usually a maximum of 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day.
Okay, 2,300 milligrams.
Yeah, but, and this is important, if someone is actively managing high blood pressure, that goal drops significantly, often down to 1,500 milligrams a day.
Wow, 1,500. That sounds really restrictive.
It is, especially when you consider that just 1 teaspoon of regular table salt has about 2,300 milligrams right there.
Right, so that puts it into perspective immediately. You're basically saying, for the stricter limit, less than a teaspoon of salt total, across everything you eat in a day. All the food, sauces, snacks.
Precisely. That's the scale of the challenge.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because general numbers are one thing, but we found a specific example in our research that was, frankly, a bit shocking. It highlights the actual numbers you might find on an ingredients label. We're not just talking percentages anymore. The research looked at the nutrition breakdown of a very common type of product. Think of it as a concentrated flavor base, sometimes called the paste in professional kitchens.
Yeah, like those intense bouillon pastes or some specialty stocks used a lot in processed foods or restaurant prep to get a big flavor punch quickly.
So this paste, a key ingredient for seasoning, what did the numbers show?
Well, this is where it gets really eye-opening. A single 100-gram serving of this paste.
Which sounds like a fair bit, maybe for a big soup or a family-sized sauce.
Exactly, a reasonable amount in certain contexts. It contains, wait for it, 4,958 milligrams of sodium.
4,958 milligrams in just 100 grams.
Staggering, isn't it?
That's almost double the maximum DASH limit for a healthy person, and more than triple the therapeutic 1,500 milligram limit.
You got it. So imagine you're making a meal and you use that as your flavor base.
You've blown your entire day's sodium budget, maybe even 2 or 3 days worth, before you even take a bite.
That's precisely the point. It highlights that this isn't just about, willpower or shaking less salt at the table. It's baked into the ingredients themselves.
So this single data point really shows how tough it is to hit those health goals when common foods are just loaded like this.
It really does. And it makes you wonder why, doesn't it? Why does something need that much sodium? It's not just about taste, is it?
That's a great question. It tastes salty, sure, but nearly 5,000 milligrams? What else is it doing in there?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, like food processing, sodium is kind of an industrial workhorse. It does way more than just enhance flavor.
Okay, like what are these other jobs sodium is doing?
It's about food science, really. Sodium compounds are great texturizers. They work with fats and starches to give processed foods a certain mouthfeel. They're also cheap stabilizers.
Stabilizers.
Yeah, they help maintain the product's consistency. And importantly, especially in cheaper processed foods, high sodium levels can mask off flavors that might come from less expensive ingredients or from sitting on a shelf for a long time.
Ah, okay. So it's hiding imperfections, in a way.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It also acts as a preservative, of course. In things like pastes or cured meats, it helps stop bacteria from growing, which extends the shelf life massively.
That's actually a really powerful insight. So the crazy high sodium isn't just about flavor intensity. It's a side effect of making the product cheap, stable for ages, and covering up potential taste issues.
That's a big part of it. Think about a product that needs to survive freezing, thawing, maybe reheating, and still taste exactly the same every time, all while keeping production costs low. Sodium is kind of essential for that in the current system.
It makes the whole processed food environment seem, well, structurally designed for high sodium.
That's a good way to put it. It's often the backbone holding much of it together, chemically speaking.
So when you see that 4,958 milligram number again, knowing all that, it suddenly makes the daily struggle crystal clear. Imagine trying to eat 3 meals a day, like the source material hinted at.
Right, and if just one component in one of those meals, a sauce, a pre-made item, uses something like that paste.
You're just piling it on without even realizing. You could easily surpass those DASH limits, maybe double or triple them, just through normal eating habits if you rely on these kinds of products.
Exactly. The real battle isn't the salt shaker you add yourself. It's often lost before the food even gets to your kitchen in the manufacturing process.
Which underscores why just telling people to eat less salt isn't enough. It seems like you need more fundamental changes.
And that's where the sources lead us. They conclude that because the problem is so deeply embedded in common ingredients, you need, well, structural lifestyle shifts to really make a dent.
Right, not just minor tweaks. So, moving from the problem to the what can you actually do, what strategies did the research point to?
The findings highlighted three specific strategies that seem to be the most effective defense against this systemic sodium overload. They're about changing your overall approach, not just a temporary diet.
Okay, if the environment's working against you, you need strong defenses. What were the three?
The first one might surprise some people: intermittent fasting, or IF.
Intermittent fasting. Huh. Usually you hear about that for weight management or metabolic health. How does changing when you eat help with sodium specifically?
It's less about the sodium in the planned meals and more about reducing the opportunities for unplanned high sodium exposure. Think about it.
Okay.
Where does a lot of hidden sodium come from? Often it's the snacks, the grazing between meals, the quick microwave lunch, the processed convenience food you grab on the go.
Right, the mindless eating or the stuff you grab when you're busy.
Exactly. By limiting your eating window, IF naturally cuts down on those moments. It reduces the reliance on those highly processed, sodium-packed convenience items simply because there are fewer hours in the day when you're eating.
Ah, I see. So it's more about reducing the frequency of exposure to potentially high sodium processed stuff. It forces more intentionality around food just by limiting the time frame.
Precisely. It's a defensive move against those incidental sodium bombs.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second strategy?
The second one is probably the most direct: home cooking.
Right, cooking from scratch.
When you cook your own meal, starting with basic ingredients, you completely sidestep those commercial pastes and bases we talked about. You control everything.
You swap that 4,958 milligram paste for, fresh vegetables, herbs, maybe some spices.
Exactly. You decide how much salt, if any, goes in. It gives you absolute control over the final sodium content. You're taking back the reins from the food industry, essentially.
That sounds very empowering. But what about convenience? Lots of people use, say, pre-cut veggies or canned broth, even when cooking at home. Did the sources mention anything about those shortcuts?
Yes, that's a key point. The advice is to be really vigilant, even with those home cooking ingredients. Check the labels.
So even canned tomatoes or beans?
Absolutely. Commercial broths, canned vegetables, tomato sauces, they can still be loaded with sodium. The key is to actively look for no salt added or low sodium versions whenever possible.
And then maybe add flavor back yourself with other things.
Right. Use herbs, spices, a splash of vinegar or lemon juice for brightness. Acids are great flavor enhancers, rather than relying solely on salt. Home cooking gives you that control, but you still need to be mindful of the building blocks you use.
Okay, great tip.
And the third strategy. The third one is limiting restaurant meals. And this one can be tough socially and practically.
Yeah, eating out is a big part of life for many people. Why is it so critical for sodium control?
It comes back to the realities of running a commercial kitchen. Restaurants need consistency and speed. High sodium levels help guarantee that a dish tastes the same, whether the head chef made it or a new cook made it.
Ah, consistency across the board. Makes sense.
And also, like with processed foods, sodium helps preserve prepped ingredients, sauces made ahead, marinated meats, stocks. It keeps things stable and safe throughout a busy service week. It extends their usability.
So even if you ask them to hold the salt when they cook your specific dish, a lot of the sodium might already be locked into the components they're using.
Very likely, yes. It's often structurally necessary for their operational model. They need that shelf life, that consistency, which means, from a low sodium perspective, their needs often run counter to yours.
So dining out means you're essentially outsourcing your ingredient control, and the system is often set up for high sodium levels by default.
That's the reality. It's very difficult to stick to a 1,500 or even 2,300 milligram goal when eating restaurant food regularly. So limiting how often you do it becomes a key part of the strategy.
It's interesting how those three fit together. Intermittent fasting, limiting the time for exposure, home cooking gives you control over ingredients, and limiting restaurants reduces reliance on systems inherently high in sodium.
Exactly. They all point towards reclaiming control over what goes into your body, moving away from relying on external preparation where sodium levels are often hidden and high.
Right. The common thread is reducing that outsourcing of your food prep. So let's try to wrap this up. What does this all mean for someone listening? We started with the DASH diet goals, 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams. Seems achievable on paper.
But then we hit the reality check. That flavor paste example, nearly 5,000 milligrams in one serving. It shows this huge gulf between the ideal and what's common in processed ingredients.
And we learned why it's so high, not just taste, but preservation, texture, cost-cutting, industrial needs.
Right. And understanding that is key for you, the listener. It shifts the focus. The biggest hurdle might not be your salt shaker, but the hidden sodium in the food system itself.
Recognizing that allows you to see why those bigger structural changes, IF, cooking at home more, eating out less, are actually necessary. They're the effective defenses.
And hopefully that shocking 4,958 number isn't just discouraging, but motivating. It clarifies why those strategies work and why they're probably needed.
Absolutely. It serves as a stark reminder. So here's the final thought, maybe some deep dive homework for you. If one common flavor base can pack almost 5,000 milligrams of sodium, what might be lurking in the other processed items in your pantry right now? The canned soups, the sauces, the marinades, the snack foods. Maybe it's time to start looking closely at those labels, that awareness. That's the first step.